I'd like to welcome everybody to the County of Newell regular council meeting, September 22nd, 2022. I'd like to call the meeting to order and entertain a motion to excuse some council members. Holly.
I'd like to excuse Amanda, Arno, and Lynette from this meeting.
Thank you. All in favor of Holly's motion? That is carried. Adoption of the minutes. Any discussion? How would you like to handle them? Neil?
I'll move we adopt the minutes.
Adoption of the minutes. All in favor of Neil's motion? That is carried. Call for post-agenda items. Yes, Holly?
I'd like to add the outstanding in the field, the email I sent out this morning to the agenda.
Oh.
It was very delayed, I apologize.
Okay. And the topic is?
Outstanding in the field.
Okay, thank you. And we'll put that under suggestion.
Item 12 under post-agenda items, 12.1.
Thank you. Any others? Motion to approve the agenda then, please. Holly. All in favor of Holly's motion? That is carried. All right, carrying on. Question period or notice of motion. Todd, what have you today?
Sorry, I have no questions in the queue. Is that what you asked me?
Yes, it is.
Sorry about that.
Thank you. Bylaws 7.1. Zachary, are you taking that? Jeff is. Okay, thank you. Good morning, Jeff.
Good morning. Thank you very much. I'll take on these bylaw first readings. Maria and Shanley are away today at the ADOA conference. Shanley sits on the board of the ADOA. It's up in Camrose Wednesday, Thursday, Friday here. So that's where they are learning, networking. Anyways, bylaw 2038-22. This purpose of this application is to redesignate Block 1 of Plan 881163 in the southwest of 30, 2216 west of the 4th, shown on your screen. The applicant is looking to subdivide this parcel because there are 2 residences on it, and he would like to separate it into separate titles. The subdivision authority bylaw does allow 1 additional subdivision from an agricultural residual parcel after the first parcel out. However, this is not the residual parcel. This parcel is the subdivided parcel that the applicant is looking to split the title in. The way in which the applicant is wishing to split the title does not leave this parcel large enough to be considered in the agricultural general district under the policies in our land use bylaw. That being said, these parcels are both going to be used for rural residential use, and it is administration's opinion that the rural residential district is better suited once these parcels are subdivided. So in front of you today, we are looking for a motion for first reading of bylaw 2038-22 to redesignate Plan 881163 Block 1 from the agricultural general district to the residential rural district, and we will schedule a public hearing for October 22nd.
Holly has a question.
So if I understand this properly, today we are just going to redesignate, then you're going to come back and divide it into how many pieces? Is that right?
Two. The applicant is proposing to subdivide this parcel along a line somewhere in here to respect setbacks, but in breaking this parcel into 2 residential parcels, it no longer meets the requirements of a parcel size to remain in the Ag Gen District.
So are the houses just at the top? Like what's the, I don't know, everything is on here, so I'm just curious.
This is a house and this is a house. So there are 2 houses currently on the parcel, and following subdivision, each parcel will contain 1 house. There will be no intensification in the dwellings on the parcel.
Alan, just for staff, is there a particular reason that the minimum acreage is about 3, right, for a subdivided parcel? Why is that?
That's correct, and that was discussed during the creation of our new land use bylaw. 3 acres has always been kind of a size that we said, you know, there can still be enough room for some agricultural operations to be happening. Once you get to a lot smaller than 3 acres, it really is just a rural residential location. And that was kind of a value set by council in passing that bylaw, that we kind of live by the over-unders. And the other great thing about redesignating this to a rural residential is now that each parcel will no longer have the ability to install a second dwelling on it because they're out of that Ag Gen District. If we leave these 2 parcels once subdivided in the Ag Gen District, each of these parcels could then host 2 dwellings, and that would be an unsupported intensification in the area.
So by passing first reading, what that does is allows you to go ahead and get it into the public stream and see what concerns or conversations can be had from there. Is that correct?
That's correct. By passing first reading, we will circulate to the appropriate bodies that need to be notified about this based on our policy and appropriate legislation. And then we will schedule the public hearing for October 22nd, about a month from today, where we'll invite the general public in, and that will be advertised as per policy.
Neil. Oh, great. Neil again. Great.
I'm Greg, not Jeff or Neil.
Or Jeff.
Just kidding. I'd like to move option 1, first reading.
Thank you. Any further conversation on the topic? All in favor of Greg's motion? That is carried. We will see that one again. 7.2. Jeff.
7.2, thank you very much. The purpose of this RFD is to, again, provide first readings so that we can necessitate and move forward with the public consultation and public input side of this bylaw amendment. The purpose of this amending bylaw is to update sections of Land Use Bylaw 2016-21 to further define some specific uses within the intermunicipal development plan area with the village of Dutchess. We are going to be looking at some amendments to section 2, which is a table that is the development permit process. In section 2, we're just clarifying that lots that didn't meet the minimum size requirements prior to the adoption of the bylaw, that the development authority still has the ability to provide a permit on that. So just some clarification. Development not requiring a permit, we're making some amendments in there with regards to shipping containers, as well as agricultural buildings to provide clarity as well, to move agricultural buildings in the intermunicipal development plan area with Dutchess to a discretionary use. And then we're adding some information to the actual Ag Gen districts under exceptions that will pertain to the intermunicipal development plan boundary area with the village of Dutchess. And then we are adding a farmstead definition to the glossary to just better define and make it clearer for staff and developers and everybody else of what the meaning of a farmstead is. So on October 21st, 2021, the RFD says the village of Dutchess filed their notice of appeal with the Land and Property Rights Tribunal. Land Use Amendment Bylaw 2031-20 2 was passed May 19th, 2022, and that addressed the issues that we found were pertinent in the notice of appeal by the Village of Dutchess. After that was read through, we continued discussions, and we noted a few other concerns that were had. Again, I went through most of those, but some of the specific uses that we're going to prohibit in the plan area in the agricultural general district. And when I say that and emphasize that, I mean these uses can still take place. It would require a land use redistricting to another district for some of these uses. So a little bit more process, a little bit more allowance for public input, and those uses are bunkhouse, boat launch, dwelling, multi-unit, and Hutterite colony only, park, pit or quarry, recreation indoor. So those are some uses that we're prohibiting in the Ag Gen District. We are reinserting our subdivision policy with some minor amendments for clarity and to tune it to our new land use districting that was in our old fringe district in our previous land use bylaw. We're inserting this to apply to the intermunicipal development plan boundary around the Village of Dutchess. And I think those are the main points. They can all be noted in the Schedule A attached to the bylaw in the agenda. The red strike through is stuff we're taking out. The red bullets are stuff we're putting in. It's the feeling of administration that this bylaw amendment does not impose any stricter regulation than the previous fringe district did in our previous land use bylaw. We're very sure to be meticulous in our review and making sure we're putting some things back to the way they were, but not making things any more stringent. This bylaw amendment has already been reviewed by Dutchess Council, and they have indicated that they are happy with the amendment, and upon third reading, they would likely they would withdraw their appeal to the LPRT. So anyways, again, today is first reading, so we can get it into the public's eye and kick it out to a public hearing again on October 22nd. So we're requesting first reading today of this bylaw amendment.
Thank you, Jeff. I'm swallowing. This is good news, bad news, but so it is adding a little bit of red tape to the area residents, but not changing it a lot from our old bylaw in 2021, correct?
Yeah, I would say the uses that will be permitted in the district are really going back to mirror what they used to look like. The words are different, the naming convention is different, but the restriction, in my opinion, is no greater than it was before on any front. We are going to continue to work with the village, and we know we need to update our intermunicipal development plan. So we've been having great meetings, and hopefully we can get this amendment read through and then work together with them to amend our IDP.
Thanks, Jeff. So good work, first of all, to staff on getting to this point. It's positive and moving forward. Council, how do you wish to handle this request from staff? Dan?
A motion that would give the first reading to the amendments.
As recommended. Any further discussion on the bylaw? Oh, go ahead, Neil.
I think it's a really good move forward. Like, it's nice to know the Duchess is, you've done a great job.
Thanks, Neil. Call the question. All in favor of Dan's motion to approve? That is carried.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Weeds, Todd, welcome. Good morning. 7.3.
We were on a roll for bylaws, so I thought this was natural, good spot to do it.
Why not?
Yes, it's been a long time since we visited the weed bylaw that we have in place. In 2010, the government of Alberta changed the Weed Control Act, and thus forced us to update our weed bylaw that we had. So we did go through that process. It was the original weed bylaws, 17, 14, 10 was in your package, and just outlines what we had in place at that time, or what we put in place at that time. And I guess we're just looking to make some updates again and create this new bylaw. So originally we had daughter on the prohibited noxious list. That we have not seen that since the original one time that it showed up down in Rolling Hills. And we also had downy brome and common burdock upgraded as noxious. Those are currently on the act as noxious, so we don't really need those. And then the other one that we're kind of thinking maybe could go away is showy milkweed, being that monarch butterflies are now on the endangered list, being that populations are at a level that we may not need to monitor and recommend control for showy milkweed. It might just be time that goes away. It is also a native plant, and I know when we initially put the 2010 bylaw in place, that sparked some questions with the minister or his staff anyways of why we were upgrading a native plant to the noxious list. But in the end, the reason that municipalities have the option to elevate weeds is because it's a local concern, and that was our local concern, and that's why we wanted it elevated at that time. So at the end of the day, I guess my recommendation is for option 2.
Okay, thank you. Todd's here for questions regarding this bylaw. Holly.
I guess I'm still confused. So scentless chamomile and leafy spurge are prohibited noxious here, but they're not elsewhere. So each area decides which are so severe they're prohibited noxious opposed to just noxious. Like I don't understand all that.
Yeah, no, good question. I probably didn't explain that very well. So currently scentless chamomile and leafy spurge sit on the Weed Control Act as noxious. So noxious kind of loosely, in order to be a noxious weed on the Weed Control Act, the weeds have been, they've gone through I don't even know what it's called, like not really a syllabus, but they've been researched, they've been determined their populations, and noxious are reason to have a weed elevated to noxious or to be noxious under the Weed Control Act is it has detrimental effects to agricultural production, hard to kill, strong root systems, a detriment to the environment if it were to establish. So our goal with noxious weeds is to control them from spreading from the area that they are currently in. In our area, scentless chamomile and leafy spurge are both at levels that they can be eradicated or potentially eradicated. So as a prohibited noxious weed, we are required to destroy those plants before they propagate, no matter where they are. So scentless chamomile, we maybe have 10 to 15 locations. We've been able to, well, outside of the Bow River, we've been able to maintain those 10 to 15 locations by, working with those landowners and keeping them there. Leafy spurge, we have 3 locations, 2 of them being on the CPR tracks and 1 of them on the an EID canal. Actually, last week at our tour, we passed just about right beside one on the Snake Lake Canal. Well, there's none there. That's one we check our prohibited noxious sites up to 4 times a season, just because those weeds they create or they have the potential to create significant economic loss for our area. When we look around our area, we sell a lot of hay in our country. We sell a lot of alfalfa seed. Having scentless chamomile and those types of crops would be a huge detriment to those producers. So we try to work to remove that impediment. And leafy spurge, if anybody's driven east into Saskatchewan and Manitoba. You can see how those nice yellow flowers take over vast rangeland and really hammer the production of those rangelands. And if we look around again at 600,000 acres of prairie and beyond, there's a huge detriment to having those weeds, in my opinion, get established in our county. So that's why we would like to keep them as prohibited noxious, keep them on the hit list, and keep their populations low.
Holly?
So at what point do you use the Weed Act to deal with producers who do not want to take care of the weeds on their own ground?
Yeah, it's a good question. Usually, I would say we like to work with producers as much as possible. We always have. Enforcement is very heavy administratively, and the costs are very heavy administratively as well. So we work with producers as much as we can. Probably, I would say, multiple years where that producer is not taking care of something that needs to be taken care of, and it's spreading beyond their borders. So if we have a small patch of common burdock, leafy, downy brome in the middle of a field, it's still on that producer's property. So if we can maintain it on that producer's property by controlling the outside edge of that patch, monitoring it for around the edge of the field, that kind of stuff, we're okay with him having noxious weeds, not being spread to other people. I would say, yeah, multiple years and multiple non-compliance with conversations kind of thing.
Dan?
So you're going to be, you're suggesting we put leafy spurge and scentless chamomile into prohibited noxious. If that's what we do, how is that going to help the county provide a better service to the ratepayers?
Yeah, good question. They currently do sit as prohibited noxious, elevated as bylaws. So it's not actually going to change anything. In updating this bylaw, we're actually dropping weeds from our bylaw. A few that were already on the Weed Act are currently on the Weed Act, so we don't need to elevate them through local bylaw. A couple native plants being the milkweeds, and then the dodder. That's a parasitic plant that feeds off other plants that we have never seen since the early 90s when it first showed up. So no change.
We have 3 options in front of us. Any other questions? Ellen?
No question, but a motion for option number 2.
As recommended. Thank you. Any other conversation? Holly?
Okay, so I thought the showy milkweed was a native plant. So the common milkweed is the native and the showy is the not.
Yeah.
They're both native plants.
But one
Milkweed
isn't.
is a native plant.
So, but the common is not a problem anymore, and we're getting rid of the showy. Is that, just trying to understand it?
We've never differentiated. We've never determined which one is which. We just have been on our own properties maintaining milkweed.
Any other questions? I'll call the question. All in favor of Ellen's motion? And that is carried. Thanks, Todd, for staying on top of our weeds. I know I have 3 plants of scentless chamomile, and Todd called me once, and now I call Todd when I cut it every year. It's just there, it grows. Sometimes I take a picture and he can watch it burn. Yeah, he has that relationship with some of our ratepayers, and probably I would say the majority of them are complying with your request, would you say?
Yeah, I'm not tooting my own horn on this because this is completely landowner driven, but when you drive to other municipalities, because we have the opportunity to view other municipalities through, our AAAF meetings, and we have lots of great conversations. In terms of prohibited noxious and noxious weeds, the County of Newell is very lucky. We have very small populations, and this is not really a lot from me. I mean, it's landowners that are doing the work, but yeah, amazing how small our weed control program has to be in the landowner side. We don't have field scale, field scabious or, what's the other one? Hound's tongue is another bad one in grazing lands. We don't have field scale problems that way. It's phenomenal. So yeah, we have 500 people that we talk to, and makes our job easy.
Good. Thank you for that relationship that you have with our ratepayers. Matt?
I think Todd also needs second reading today, so we can send this up to the minister.
Did I miss? Yes, I see that. I did miss that. Right. So 2040-22, second reading. Do I have a motion for that? Holly?
I'll motion second reading.
Thank you. All in favor of Holly's motion? That is carried. Todd, if you wouldn't mind, could we take our delegation who is here, and then, because I know you're hanging around with us all day, either online or in the audience, could we take Aurora and then come back to you?
Yeah, 100%. In fact, my formal Fieldman report is always written and in your package. So if you don't need me to read it and have great questions, I can just do it from.
We always like your presence.
Oh,
So
yeah,
if
okay.
you would hang around, and then we can drill you with our questions.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Aurora, would you like to come forward? And as you're getting settled, I'll start with introductions around the table. How's that sound? I'm Kelly Chrisman. I'm from Division 6, which is the west side of the county. Neil, go ahead.
Neil Johnson, Division 10.
Ellen Unruh, and I represent the countryside around the village of Rosemary. Welcome.
Hi, Greg Screever, Castles and Lake No Resort, Division 5.
Welcome, Matt Fensky, County Administrator.
Good morning, Holly Johnson, Scandia, Rainier, and Bow City, Division 4.
Good morning, Adina Scandrup, Division 2, the Tilly area.
Good morning, Dan Short from Division 1, Rolling Hills.
And go ahead, Ariane.
Ariana Nielsen, Executive Assistant.
And yourself, welcome.
I'm Aurora Champlone. I'm the manager of the Brooks Food Bank. It's really great to be here. So just wanted to say thank you for giving us this opportunity to talk. We're dedicating this month to increasing awareness and transparency about what we do. I'm really pleased with this opportunity. I've never been in this building before, so this is really fun.
Great, welcome. We'll let you take it away.
Absolutely. So,
I'll ask you if you would speak right into your microphone.
And is it not loud enough?
Yeah, not for this old ear on the left side.
How does that sound better?
That's better, yeah, thanks.
All right. So the Brooks Food Bank, while it is vital to many people in our community, it's not always very well understood by those who've had the privilege to never need to use it. So for the next few minutes, I'm just going to outline what we actually do and how we're able to continue to do it. So we run a variety of ongoing food supply programs, such as the bread bin, the free to take shelf, the grassland snack program. But the program that we commit the majority of our resources to is the hamper program. So this hamper program is when we provide approximately a 100-pound hamper of food on a 6-week cycle to households that are in need. This is only for the most needy households in our community. The social stigma around asking for help and applying for aid means that very few people actually want to access our services, and for many, the admission that they need help is very difficult to make. So we keep this in mind while we're servicing the community, and we aim to always treat our clients with dignity and respect. Applying to the hamper program, it's a process that we take very seriously. The potential client is asked to demonstrate their need by showing their current income balanced with their expenses. This is put into a formula that's been approved by the board of directors, and it's based on household size. So that's how we calculate what need is. For example, a family of 4 should have no more than $1,000 left over for their monthly personal expenses, transport, clothes, and food. And then we would begin helping if that's their situation. So while no one would leave the Brooks Food Bank without any help, we do reserve the full hamper process for those who can demonstrate this need. So of course, exceptions can also be made when there are children involved, and children often are involved in our programs. 40% of the individuals that we serve are children. And this can be compared, only 4% are seniors. So we can really see where the need is in the community. People who are just single households, they're very common. And a few of these single households are also children, emancipated minors that the high school has directed our way. It is happening. So we know that over half of our clients rely on social assistance for income. 15% are working, and 10% very recently lost their jobs. And we also know that 11%, just over 1 in 10, do experience homelessness. So the community has been very supportive in recent years, and we really appreciate that because our client numbers are increasing. This is to be expected if we just look at recent world events, but it is something that we are dealing with right now. So in 2020, the year of the COVID layoffs, we saw a 53% increase from the year before of individuals using the hamper program. While the numbers did fall slightly when COVID supports began coming into effect, our totals for the current year have already surpassed 2020's, and they are set on a course to match, if not exceed, what we saw in 2021. So COVID may be solved, but current world problems have begun to exceed or exacerbate the individual situations that were caused by them. So we currently provide food to 410 unique households, and that works out to 900 people in Brooks and the county. So this is a number that's quite large, and it's not one that I think most people would be thinking of when they're thinking of what we're doing. This is 900 people. We have only 3 paid employees, and we have 13 regular volunteers. So we definitely have our hands full to keep up with this demand. The food that we're able to supply, it comes from a pretty wide variety of places. We are members of Food Banks Canada and Food Banks Alberta, and they negotiate with large chain stores on our behalf, and they redistribute donations from the largest food banks down to smaller ones like ours. We also have smaller agreements with local Brooks businesses. We work with the farmers, the Hutterites, and we also run a yellow bin program where local groups can fill one of our bins, and this would be during like a sports game, a church meeting. I'm sure you've seen them around town. It's becoming more popular. So food that is not received through these channels, we do have to purchase. Last year, we spent $50,000 of our budget just towards keeping our hampers full and keeping some nutritional value there. If we turn now towards the financial side, the Brooks Food Bank does not receive any monetary donations, funding from the government. It runs entirely off of community donations. In addition to many small donations from individuals, which keeps off a very continuous stream of funding for us, we also run 2 major annual fundraisers. The first is the Turkey Drive. It's very generously hosted by Real Country Boom radio station, and donors can pledge the financial equivalent of a turkey. And the second is the spring charity auction, which is run through ANIT. These 2 fundraisers make up the bulk of what we receive, and that is almost all of our operating costs. So we're very thankful for the wide variety of community support that really comes together during these events. If we're talking about ways to support us, we do collect items for our March auction all year round, and we do hope people can look around homes and businesses for items that they could donate. Auction house takes literally almost anything, and we do arrange pickups and drop-offs if anyone just contacts our office. And we do provide tax receipts for anything over $25. And it's also very worth it to check out the items that our auction has because it's a huge eclectic amount of things that people bring to us. So that's everything I wanted to say directly. Is there any questions? Yeah?
Holly, go ahead.
Just curious about what the numbers have been now, compared, like how many of the people who are getting regular hampers are the working poor, where they're employed, just can't get enough money, and how many are people who just aren't unemployable for whatever reason?
So let me just refer back. Yeah, so 15% are what we would call working poor, where primarily their income is coming from employment of some kind. The only thing we can't track there is people who are working under the table and don't want to admit it. That doesn't factor in. But 15%, whereas 53% are relying primarily on social assistance. And that would be income support, Alberta Works, or AISH.
Thank you. Adina.
Excuse me, I'm just wondering, do you receive any funding from FCSS?
We have received grants from them, but we don't receive any continuous streams.
So FCSS can't fund food banks directly. They have to, a certain project possibly.
Yes, we have to have a project and then we have to apply with full grant application, and we have received money that way, but you need to have like a goal that we're working towards. It can't just go towards operational
And it
standards.
can't go towards food. That's the
Yes.
other contingent on FCSS. Greg.
You mentioned a number 900. Now, 900 people or 900 households?
So let's see here. So it's 410 unique households, and just doing like mathematical breakdown, that was 902 people.
Ellen.
Oh, you still have the program in place, the catering program?
We're not currently running any catering programs. Obviously, all of them were put into hold during COVID, and other facilities haven't got all of those ducks in a row yet. So it's something we're looking forward to maybe re-engaging with in the future, but we're not doing it right now.
Yeah.
I know Rolling Hills used to operate a second harvest program every year right around this time. Is there still a second harvest program being operated anywhere, or is that gone to the wayside?
What do you mean by second harvest program?
The farmers, all the potato growers and whatnot, they would, after harvest, whatever was left over, generally, they would collect, and there would be a huge amount of vegetables donated through that. There was also a food drive organized at the same time, so people would bring in non-perishable items. I'm just curious as to if that's something that
That's not something specifically that's happening, although right now we have received a huge amount of harvest items from that area, from the Hutterite colonies in that area, and from more local farmers as well. But the food drive and that specific term is not something I'm familiar with.
R-RUR, do farms, organizations, you mentioned the Hutterites, do they receive a tax deductible receipt for their donations?
We do not give any tax receipts for food itself because it's so hard to value, especially we often receive the things that would have maybe gone into the garbage. So it's not something we usually value, and it's not, doesn't come with a tax receipt.
Thanks. And then the other question I have is, how many years has Brooks and District Food Bank been operating?
So it came into being in 1989. But we do know that it was running under a different name through the Legion for a while before it became officially incorporated.
Thank you. Yeah, Holly.
So I believe you have 410 hampers right now ongoing from what you said, if I got the number right. And at least where do you think you're going to be in a couple of months, given where things are going? And how are you doing for donations in terms of meeting the needs of these hampers?
So What we're hoping for is that we just recently saw a spike and that things will slowly begin to decrease. The June numbers that we had hamper-wise were the largest for this entire year, and we didn't get that high since the COVID layoffs in 2020. So that spike we're hoping is going to begin to decrease. At that time, we were very pressed for food and we wouldn't have been able to keep that pace going. So so we're hoping as we move into the school and the school is able to support kid lunch programs, that some of the direct need for us is going to decrease.
Adina has a question.
So for my own curiosity, because the Brooks District has such a diverse culture, is there something specific that you really need a large quantity of, like something specifically like that people could be donating?
Yeah, so a couple of things that we really do benefit from receiving is like rice, beans, meal sort of dry goods. They're things that everyone across cultures can use. They know what to do with, and they can stay on the shelves quite a long time. Boxed meals, ready meals, these sorts of things are very helpful to families that are quite busy. Not everyone can make a lot of good if we just give them beef and flour and eggs. Boxed meals, canned meals, those sorts of things are actually a lot more helpful, and they work across a variety of ways.
Aurora, is there checks and balances in place? Because we have such a large county, how do we ensure that people are not going out of county to receive this same service?
We do require knowing like an address, and we often do follow that up with a piece of mail or a rental agreement that sort of verifies that everyone is where they're saying they are. We also do sometimes communicate across counties when people are in between. It is something that we have a relationship with the nearby food banks, and we're able to make that communication. But yes, we do verify addresses because sometimes people do deceive if everyone's living together or apart. It does happen.
Good, thank you. Well, seeing no further questions, if I could just take the opportunity on behalf of council to thank your volunteer board of directors and yourself for the work that you do and for supporting our residents as best you can in these trying times. I didn't hear an ask. So I totally thank you for taking the time, making the time for this presentation. That really helps us understand what is happening in our community.
Yeah, I'd like to extend that thanks right back. It's great to be listened to and be able to discuss these details with people. We really just kind of want to spread the understanding of what we're doing. We've had a lot of changeover. I'm new to my position, and most of my executives are also new to theirs. So we're looking to increase that understanding, do more outreach, and talk to the community more.
Wonderful. Thank you. Have a great day and a good holiday season forward. This is the first day of fall. Yeah, good. Thanks again. Okay, Todd, whenever you want to come back, you're welcome. Oh, speak of him and he arrives. Thanks, Todd. Yes, very good timing. You have your Fieldman's report?
I did. I brought it with me.
Yeah, good. So you can read it to us.
It never left my possession. The chain of custody on this thing is intense. It's a beautiful report, and I'm sure everybody had a wonderful opportunity to read it at your leisure.
Yes.
But just, some Cole's notes. Roadside mowing is really nearing a close. we're happy for that. I think the operators are happy with that. 400 hours kind of is what they each put on their mower tractors each season. So that's a lot of roads they get to see, and they actually quite enjoy it. One of our mower operators is a hunter, so I mean he loves the wildlife aspect of things. Another one is a local farm producer, so I mean he gets to see crops getting planted as well as crops coming off, so that's kind of fun. And Patricia's been doing it so long, I'm not even sure what she loves to see about it, but she thoroughly enjoys doing that. So we're happy to have those great guys doing the work, and happy to have them back on our crew to continue with some other projects. So surveys, we got everything done. We were happy. Didn't find anything that we needed to be alarmed about, and we've talked about that a little bit in the past. Our rental numbers, you know, I kind of look back at old Fieldman reports and often steal some of the ideas to report on from those. Our drill acres are down from last year, which was a little bit of a surprise, I guess, but we did have a dry spring, and that usually impacts what guys are planting in terms of, you know, dry corners or, you know, some dryland chunks that they want to get back into grass or try to crop. But, you know, our renters are about even. So we still have the same amount of renters, just smaller acres. So anyways, down a little bit on the drills, still a valuable program, I think. Livestock equipment, it was near identical. Usually what happens is we'll have, you know, 5 renters on the scale, but, you know, this year we got 4, but we have 4 renters on the shooting panels, and last year we had 3. Kind of thing, it's just up and down a little bit. More trap rentals this year on the magpies and the skunks. We had great success. There was a local producer that rented 3 of our traps, kind of tilly country, actually very close to where I live. I think he said 75 magpies he was able to control in one of his alfalfa seed fields. And magpies are, they love to eat the cocoons, I think, anyways, where they put the larvae. So he was quite happy with that. He ended up buying 3 from us for next year, so then he doesn't have to rent them. And then sprayers, man, our big boomless field sprayer probably had its best year ever. We were super pumped. It spent a bunch of time in the Patricia area, you know, killing some thistles and things in pastures and some floodland up there. So we were super happy with that. And I think the guys really appreciated it when they had it. It says 5 rentals, but it was probably out for about a month. The guys really used it quite good, so we were happy with that. And then we use it in our own programming, so that's kind of nice too. And finally, barbecue rentals are on the increase. This is awesome. You're going to see it in use today for lunch, so we're happy about that as well. But yeah, we used to get almost 40 days of use out of it, or 40 events of use, and that we're kind of halfway, but we were at like 2 not so long ago, so happy about that. I think we had a great inspection season for weeds. Most of our weed sites and our contract spray sites required return trips this year, which was a little frustrating just because we had the rains in July that we're not so used to. But yeah, I think we still had pretty good control. Riverwalk program we talked about before, so I won't really touch on that. Emerson Bridge, popular spot, loving it. We enjoy having campers down there. We enjoy long-term rentals. We enjoy the people that come and they say, you know, we were just down here driving through, and we wanted to inquire how we come back. When are you guys closed? When are you open? We've had multiple people wanting seasonal site packages already. So turning people away is kind of a good problem. And we're pumped that people enjoy it down there. So if anybody's going this weekend, it should be a good time and a beautiful place to be. Take lots of pictures. We don't take enough pictures of that place, I think. We need to pump its tires a little more. Great news for next springs. We talk about tree planting all the time, and we never get to do enough of it, but the Brooks Fish and Game has a massive tree planting site going in at the Brooks Aqueduct site. That's, I think last week, Daniel Buell from the EID is setting up the tree plan itself, and I thought it was almost 8,000 trees on a 20-acre chunk, so that's kind of a cool little wildlife habitat. There was some fruit trees in there, well, like Saskatoon chokecherries. So yeah, just a wonderful, neat little property right by Brooks. It's going to be great. They've worked it up, did a little fall tillage so that the spring is easier. It's coming together really well. And then Lester Janke this spring had a great program down at the Spruill Conservation Site in Rolling Hills, very close to Councillor Dan's house, or Councillor Short's house, pardon me. And yeah, I can't remember how many trees we planted there, but we had a wonderful group of volunteers from the 4-H and JBS Canada, so that was a really fun morning. And yeah, so I've talked about those. I think our partnerships realistically in Ag Services, they're a feather in our cap. When I started here, we didn't really have the greatest relationships, kind of antagonistic, if you would, with some of our urban neighbors, just because we spend all this time and effort doing weed control, but currently our urban partners weren't. And so we had some meetings. We figured out how to do it better with them. And we do it at cost for them, and nobody's out, and we have great programs going in all of them. So I think wonderful, wonderful programs. And yeah, we're looking to do more environmental farm plans as well as capped kind of funding agreements. CAP is probably not what it's called anymore. It's probably called Growing Forward 3 or something. I did not get that. Yeah, it's a new agreement. And there are some new programs that are kind of being offered. It's different organizations that are kind of leading the charge on it. And I read it all. I guess I didn't absorb it as well as I needed to absorb it, but they're dry. Grant programming is dry. So, and that's what I kind of had for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed my ramblings.
And if I could add, just if you want to talk a little bit about our Ag Service Board Day at Crow's Nest Pass.
I would love to give you more information. Will and Joe actually attended a meeting on Tuesday down in Lethbridge, our AAAF meeting, and the young lady from Crow's Nest Pass was there. They're almost finalized on the agenda, so they're hoping that it comes out next week, and that'll have all the details for you. That's great question. I forgot to mention that. So I'm hoping to have the South Region Ag Service Board Conference details to you next week.
Good deal. And that's October 25th at Crow's Nest Pass.
I believe that's correct. Yes.
Okay. And then back to the barbecues, I just wanted to add that I think more places are getting into the barbecue business too. From when I started council anyway, it seemed like we were the only ones with a portable barbecue, but I see more and more around. So that will cut into your numbers as well.
And that's okay too.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was, it was a need in 2009 when we bought it. There wasn't enough for, local oil field companies had some, but they weren't always available for, ratepayers or just general public to use. So that's why we got in the game, and that's awesome if more people have them.
Yeah, for sure.
It's no small investment. I mean, back in 2009, I think it was $26,000. We have not looked at what it would cost to replace it. We invest it probably costs us about $5,000 every second or third year. We bring it to Calgary. They completely dip it in, I think it's an acid bath kind of thing. The barbecue, the stainless steel part itself, or I think stainless steel. It comes out just like brand new. And they told us if we keep that thing in good shape, clean, it'll last us forever. So we have our fingers crossed, and that's the idea, because we don't really want to invest that $26,000 again.
Holly.
Just for later discussion, Todd, I got to talk to you about weeds in Scandia, and I don't want to forget, so if you can just sometime come talk to me, that'd be great.
Okay. Motion to approve Todd's report. Adina does that.
I'll make that motion.
All in favor of Adina's motion? That is carried. Thank you, Todd. Moving down our agenda in numerical order, basically. We're doing great today.
Word for word.
Good morning, Lane. We're at item 10.1.
Good morning, Council. It's informative to come in after Todd. I've always wondered why we have magpie traps. Never thought that they were much of a nuisance. Anyhow, one of the roles that municipalities have is to plan and prepare for and be in a position to respond to disaster events. One of the things that Council has done a few years ago, we entered into a regional emergency response agreement that includes the other urban municipalities with the exception of the city of Brooks. With that structure in place, that arrangement in place, what we need to do now is move ahead with updating the disaster response plan and consolidating all of the individual response plans that the 4 municipal partners have into one comprehensive document. These binders represent the county's version of the response plan. It's important that the plan be comprehensive and that it be kept up to date. In this case, it is neither right now because it is a dated document. And what we are wanting to do is move ahead with updating a regional response plan that incorporates all 4 municipal partners into one comprehensive document. We're not in a position to do that under the current arrangement, and we are wanting to apply for a collaboration grant that would make funds available for the completion of that project. So that's what we're asking Council to consider this morning, is a resolution to support the submission of an application for a grant to complete and update the disaster response plans for all 4 municipal partners. If you have any questions, I can attempt to answer them with regards to this particular item.
Neil has a question.
Yeah, when we were in Regina this spring, there was a lot of talk about these kind of plans relating to climate change and weather events. Is that part of this or will be part of this?
Well, a lot of the disasters that are happening right now are being attributed in one way or another to climate change, and that's the whole point in going through this process. You go through and try and figure out what type of events could occur, what the cause of those is, whether it's climate change or some other thing, doesn't make much difference, but we have to be in a position to respond to them. And hopefully what we would be doing is identifying the type of events and making sure that we're in a position to respond to a wide variety of disasters within the county.
So it's been a couple of years since we made the motion to do this regional emergency management partnership, and obviously that's what administration does want to move forward on. It's still a working, it's a work in progress.
Correct. The biggest part of it is the preparation of the plan. Once the plan's in place, a complete plan also provides for ongoing updates to happen over time rather than just put it on the shelf and forget about it.
Yeah. So this is going to bring all 4 plans into one document, basically.
That's right.
Yeah. Holly?
So what would be the amount of the grant you're applying for? And if you're not successful, are you still going to do this collaborative, update the collaborative plan, or we're just going to be shelled if you don't get the grant? Okay, how much is the grant you're applying for? And if you don't get that grant, will you still go ahead with this process, or will it just be shelved?
Good question. I believe that the cap on the application is in the neighborhood of $70,000. If it's not approved, we have to go ahead with completing and updating these documents one way or another. We're hopeful that it will be considered and approved by the Department of Municipal Affairs. This certainly falls within the parameters of what the intention for that grant is.
Dan, and then Holly.
So if the cost is $70,000, or if the grant was for $70,000 and it didn't go through, then that cost would be split between the 4 municipalities, is that right?
Well, one way or another, it would need to be borne within the region, whether it's funded as a separate budget item, or if we're going to have to look at just relying on the staff complement that we have and understand that it's going to take much longer than we would like it to take in order to complete it, but it needs to be done one way or another.
Just before Holly, we had a presentation at Foothills Little Bow on Friday. I believe it was the My Tax program, and it's in collaboration or through the University of Lethbridge. So if Municipal Affairs doesn't fund this, I would suggest to keep that program in mind and have a university student. We could apply through University of Lethbridge. MITACS is the program. Good. Holly.
I was just wondering if this October 18th, this incident emergency management, is that tied into that as well? Or is that just a separate event going at a similar time?
That one is, I believe that's the city of Brooks.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a separate one. Brooks isn't a partner to the arrangement that we have in place. It includes the 3 smaller urbans in the county.
Yeah.
But Brooks is going ahead with an exercise. We're going to be there and part of that because there is natural need for us to work with them on a partnership basis in the event of a disaster anyway.
So why would your plan not include City of Brooks as well?
I can answer that. They were invited and part of the discussion, and they decided to do it on their own, I believe. Okay. It's probably different or slightly different discussion, given they have a concentrated area and our area is maybe more vast. Okay. Neil.
Being that most of the services that would deal with any disaster would come out of Brooks, the police, the hospitals, would it be worth another conversation to try and work with them a little bit on this? I can't see the county and the town not being in the same binder.
Those are good comments. I think what the finished plan needs to include is recognition of the fact that there are other partners that would be brought in during an event. One of the things that happens when an event occurs is that there's a response agency, and the agency pulls in service providers from across the region. So things like the RCMP are brought in, education systems, health services, all of those, and it's recognized that many of those are based in the city of Brooks. But a regional response agency brings those partners together in the event of a disaster. Even though there isn't a formal agreement that we have, it happens when an event occurs.
And we have mutual aid agreements in place, so they would be recognized within the plan. Yeah, as well as our bordering municipalities, Wheatland, etc. So it was a choice at that time, I guess.
Was this with the last council, or?
I believe so.
I think it's worth a try to get them back on board. I mean, you got a totally different council over there now.
Mm-hmm.
I can't see the drawbacks to it. Nothing but benefits.
So a letter of invitation, a reach out.
I think it's appropriate to do something like this.
Okay. Anybody else? you want to make a motion to direct staff in that area?
I maybe don't have enough information to, I would like to make that motion, but I don't know if I have enough information. I don't want to, I want your comments on that. Is there a reason we're not? Do you want to do this?
Good questions. When we entered into this arrangement, it was primarily because the smaller urbans that we partner with do not have the resources themselves to do much of anything when it comes to putting plans together and responding to an event. It was acknowledged that if there is something that happens in any one of those three smaller urbans, they're going to be reaching out and relying very heavily on the service that we're providing in that regard. The initial conversation, it did include the City of Brooks Emergency Services. They have a very focused mandate for responses within the city. We can certainly have conversations again to see if there's an opportunity for us to make sure that there is interactions with and would include the City of Brooks Emergency Services to the extent possible. And it may be that they would have an interest at this point in opening up the arrangement and formalizing their direct involvement. Without having that conversation again, we won't know what the response is, but we would certainly be open to having that conversation again.
Yep, Neil.
Do you have a comment before I make a motion?
I was just, yeah, because when you said, I thought when Scandia had those plow winds go through, like that was critical. I mean, the county was there right away with equipment to take down the trees and pick, help with the mess where it wouldn't have really fit the city. So I kind of see now where you're coming from. It is very different and it might not need their assistance initially. So yeah, I kind of see now where the reason where they're not involved.
Neil, just going back, you're still thinking?
I'm always thinking.
Yeah, okay. Greg, go ahead.
I think I'm with Neil on this because I do think that it's important to have the City of Brooks part of our disaster plan. With respect to especially Lake Newell Resort that has over 400 people in the hamlet and rely on the City of Brooks for their firefighting and their disaster. That's part of our realm, and we rely on that. I think it's important to have City of Brooks as part, and especially with Neil's division also being surrounded by Brooks, and along with a lot of the industrial ratepayers that we have that border the City of Brooks, where disasters could come out of. So yeah, I think it's important to have them as part of the plan. And I think we should, like Neil says,
With the
include them.
entire county in your mind.
Yeah,
right?
well, absolutely.
Thank
Well,
you.
no, absolutely. And I do agree that the county does include these areas too.
So what I'm hearing, Matt, go ahead.
So I think what Lane's looking for today to move forward is a motion to support moving forward with the grant submission. The conversation about inviting the City of Brooks to be a party to the agreement we have with our other partners under the Regional Emergency Management Agency, we could put that forward at joint services and have the conversation with all the partners. I'm not a big fan of plowing the same field twice. But things may have changed. A lot of what gets rolled into this emergency response plan, you'll see duplicated in the City of Brooks emergency response plan. These are for higher level disasters. It's a big part of the municipality's portfolio, getting geared up to be able to respond appropriately. It's a tall order to have trained staff to respond appropriately, especially when, in our region, knock on wood, we haven't had a lot to respond to. I think the Patricia fire was probably the biggest one we've had 20 some odd years. We did have a train derailment in Bassano, so these things aren't out of the realm of possibility, but I think it's valid to extend the invite to Brooks, but they might just have a different focus. They will, by virtue of our mutual aid agreements and our fire agreement that we have with the city, they will respond, so they are already involved in a lot of ways. This will be a higher level planning exercise and making sure we've got support in the region, especially for those smaller municipalities that we've got agreements with.
Thank you for pulling us back out of that rabbit hole we were going down. I appreciate that. So the recommended action is that we apply for the regional grant. So we, as Matt says, we can always reach out, but for now, the wheels are under the vehicle to get this moving. And I think staff would like to move forward on this, as it has been at least a year, maybe two, since this motion was made. All right, so on topic, how would you like to, Neil?
Does that mean we're not reaching out to the town of Brooks?
Nope, I've heard from staff that they will extend, but the application will not include them at this time because the process is underway, but they will extend the invitation.
There will be an invitation to the town to participate in this?
To the city, yes.
To the city? Okay, I'm cool with that.
That's what I heard from staff. Matt?
Yeah, so specifically, we'll leave it to Councillor Johnson at the next joint services meeting to speak to it, but I'll reach out to Alan and Jenny, and we'll get the regional emergency agreement on joint services for discussion.
Yeah, I just wanted to know if, that's why I was going to make the motion. Are we in favor of getting Brooks in, or does our council not want it?
Well,
You called it a rabbit hole.
yeah, and we have a recommended action from staff. And so if you want to halt the process that's underway, which is going to take time, then you would go down that rabbit hole at this time.
No, I don't want to halt it.
Dan?
You need to be clear in the difference between an emergency response plan and emergency response services.
Mm-hmm.
Our services are there and there's agreements in place. The plan is completely different from the services. The plan involves the services, but they're separate things. So how do we handle a train derailment until it has nothing to do with Brooks? So we can make our plan, they can make their plan. Our emergency response services can have a work on the mutual aid agreement. I don't think the invitation's nice, but I think make sure you separate services and plan.
It's a good point. And we do have agreements in place with the partner municipalities already through the fire services. So this was a natural, and yeah. So I think dealing with the recommended action with the understanding that Brooks would always be welcome and that we will have that discussion at joint services. And then you will get your answer, maybe that you're seeking.
Just bringing it up.
Yep.
That's all.
Much appreciated too. Greg.
I'd like to make a motion to pursue the preparation of the regional emergency response plan, option 1.
Great, thank you. Any further questions, comments that we haven't heard? All in favor of Greg's motion? That is carried. And thanks, Lane, for moving this forward. We'll carry on with our agenda. Go ahead, Lane.
So the next agenda item relates to council's role as policymakers. Matt has asked that we start a process of reviewing all of the policies that we have on the books. I think there's 116 policies, more or less. And what we're suggesting is that it's an appropriate time to start a review. We would anticipate, if this is approved as presented, that completing that review process during each 4-year term of each council in the future. So the first policy that we're wanting to present or are presenting to council for consideration outlines how that policy development, approval, and update process works. The instructions that was given is that we want to reduce the number of policies overall, and we want to reduce the length of those policies. So this one is proposing to consolidate 3 policies that stood on their own into one updated document. I think it's fairly self-explanatory and clear as to what's proposed. We have included in here the original policies, the markup changes, so that you know exactly what is being proposed for amendments to those policies. And we are requesting council approval of this revised policy.
Any questions or comments for Lane? Housekeeping in order. How would you like to handle this request? Neil, you're thinking? Oh.
Okay, so council has a role to provide direction for the organization, and that's primarily done through policies. In this particular instance, the policy that has been on the books that is before council outlines how that policy process is supposed to work, how policies are adopted, how they're reviewed, how they're distributed, how that information about those policies is shared. What we're proposing to do is combine 3 separate policies that relate to that policy governance process into one document. There's been amendments, revisions that have been made, and it is before council for consideration here today. The one thing that we're wanting to make sure that council is clear on is that all policies are available to the public through the county's website. That will continue to be the case, and that we anticipate that this is going to be the first of several visits with council when we come back during the next 3 years that remain in your term with a review of all of the policies that are on the books right now.
So the item is 10.2, and the markup is included in your package where the edits would be made. Holly, and then Matt.
I'd just like to move that we go with option 1.
Thank you, Matt.
Yeah, so one of the items that we removed from the old policy was the requirement for council to look at the entire policy handbook on an annual basis. Policy is really important. These policies inform the numbers that staff put into your budget for approval to accomplish the service levels that are acceptable in the region. So there's some policies that are more interesting, I think, than others. Road maintenance might be one of them, or graveling program, right? So when we talk about complaints about washboard, you know, you could entertain as a council, our policy is 0 days of washboard. And then Mark's going to come in here and he's going to ask you for millions of dollars to accomplish that. So we'll hire more grader operators, we'll invest in more, you know, right? So policy has meaningful impacts in the real world. We thought, or I thought, it is a great educational opportunity as well, right? Because there's hundreds of these policies, and I'm guessing you probably haven't spent a ton of time reading through the entire handbook, and that's okay. So each meeting will have 1 or 2 of these policies, and hopefully we can get through them over the next 3 years. Some of the policies might be A-okay, and that's great. You'll just put your current stamp of approval on. We've got a largely new council, and I think it's a good opportunity for you to review and put your stamp on things. And if there's things that need to change, then we'll change them.
And I appreciate that you made it more realistic that we can do that over the 4 years rather than in 1 year, because that was not doable. Yeah. Okay. Motion. We have a motion, Holly's motion. Thank you for putting me back on track. All in favor of Holly's motion? 1, 2, all in, that is carried. Thanks, Lane. Good discussion. It is 10 to 12, so we will, what should we do here, Matt? Matt, you
lunch,
are the
right?
food trailer guy, so
I'm the food trailer guy. I'm going to get you guys through the rest of this agenda in 10 minutes.
okay,
Yeah, you won't be late for lunch.
okay.
So I had the privilege of meeting with the principal from Alcoma School, which is one of our counselors' better halves. And she presented this opportunity to host what looks like a really cool Know Your Food mobile trailer that is put together by Ag for Life. They're looking at requesting council to support hosting this trailer in our parking lot, or when I pitched the idea to our crew, they suggested maybe we put it in the compound where they've got appropriate power and space. Yeah, bringing in up to 700 students to go through this trailer. It's all geared towards ag education. There's still some planning left to do. There might be some ag producers who are invited to kind of provide a information booth as well. So what they're looking for is council's approval for hosting and sponsorship of up to $1,300 to get kids to and from the county facility. So it's there for your consideration.
First question, would this run through Todd's Ag Service Board, or where would we fund this through?
If council approves that, then we'll add it to our 2013 budget as a sponsorship line. I don't think it would be through Todd's budget, maybe a community grant GL in one of the functions.
And you meant 2023 budget. Okay, thank you. Holly had a question.
I feel like I'm a little confused about the numbers here, because when I went through what the numbers we got from the board when we had our meeting with them, the number of kids from the rural is about 100 more than their predictions would be. So I feel like I'm missing something, and why these numbers are high compared to what the school board said they would be, and then why we only have 200 kids coming from Brooks, but I think there should be about 1,000 kids between the Brooks Junior High and the high school. So I'm just not understanding.
Yeah, I can't speak to the numbers of students enrolled. I can follow up with the principal out there for some clarification on the numbers.
Could be a difference in age groups that she's inviting, that sort of thing, but
Yeah, because Jem doesn't even have a junior high. So I just feel like I'm missing something. There's some piece that I'm not connecting with. The second thing is, if we're doing this, why wouldn't we be including like the Christian schools, not here, the Catholic system? If we're doing this, should it not be opened up to more schools and more potential to introduce kids to ag?
Matt?
That is at council's direction. I'm not opposed to it being open to more. I'm not sure what the capacity of the trailer is over. So, and really, you know, we're kind of piggybacking on the effort of the principal in Alcoma. So this when it came through the door, I thought, man, that just fell into our lap. It kind of goes in line with the ag promotion that council's been speaking about. These are, yeah, by all means, I can have the conversation with Leona about the potential for it to be opened further. We did actually in our meeting together talk about, can we open it up to the community at large? Like I'm interested in going through the trailer because I think it'll be a cool thing. So those are some of the details to be sorted out between now and May next year.
Yeah, just a reminder that our request is for the $1,300 for busing. So it's great that we have somebody from Grassland School Division willing to put this on and bring it to our area. And I'm sure that Todd's Ag Service Board or Ag Department would be willing to help out, right?
Yeah, by all means.
As needed.
Yeah, staff will be assisting as necessary for siting it properly, and we've talked about potentially having some of the ag equipment out for kids to view and a few of Todd's guys to explain some of the services. So those details will be sorted out over the next number of months. We'll try and get as many of our ag producers who have an interest in setting up an information booth first, and then if there's time to be filled, we can definitely fill it, I'm sure.
Good. Neil?
Yeah, I really like the idea of the Catholic system. Like, you know, all the tools are there. All you have to do is expand it. And it's a really good chance for the county to showcase us to the kids too.
Absolutely. Holly has a question.
Matt, in your discussions with Leona, was there potential to have it for more than one day? Like, it just has one day picked out. So was there potential?
It's
Yeah, it's over
three
3 days.
So you get it that long as opposed to just,
Yeah, it says 3 days in the executive summary. So, yeah, Matt.
Yeah, and potentially if it can be opened up further, I can follow up with Leona to see if we can keep the trailer longer, depending on the number of students that we're looking at, kind of thing. So, great suggestions.
and we could bring out that health people who are at the conference, the ASB one about our health, we can bring those and have all the farmers go through and see how healthy they are. I love that thing, and Blaine's like, no farmer's gonna go. I'm like, but Blaine, it's so cool. He's like, no one's gonna go.
Okay, council, looking for direction on this recommendation. Dan, you're ready?
Yeah, I move we approve this.
Okay, great. Any further, Neil?
Can we expand that so that Matt can go ahead and work with the Catholic system and like not limit it just to this 1,300? Because it might be double that. I'm not sure how you'd even word that.
Matt, you have an idea?
We can always come back if we need additional sponsorship. I think we've got the blessing to open it wider. I'll have that conversation with Leona, and she wasn't sure that they'd even need the entire $1,300, so that might be enough to work with anyways. And if we need a little bit extra, we can always come back looking for more.
Good. So Dan's motion is good to go then. All in favor of Dan's motion? Good, thanks. That's exciting. Spring of 2023. 10.4. Oh. Okay, let's recess for lunch.